Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. It is Monday, November 18th, 2024. I am Jer Stays, coming to you from our studio at Techtown, and joining me, as he does after, well, what's honestly a pattern now of Lions victories, Fletcher Sharp. How are you, man? Good to see you.
Good. Lions, they win, and then I come talk about it.
Now, have you drunk the Kool-Aid? We've asked this for 3 years. Are you now into the Kool-Aid?
Vegas seems to think they're the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. I won't necessarily go that far. But what I will say is I think there's a pretty good chance that they could be the ones holding that Lombardi Trophy for the first time ever. They're a really well-built team, which matters already. But I think the biggest thing is that they get people who actually want to be here. It's one thing to have a good team and have people who are looking for their way out, but you got people who legitimately want to be a part of this franchise. You could tell even after the game with the Jaguars, typically after getting beaten up the way that they got beat up, you see people are well, we're going to shake hands. But they were yeah, man, there's nothing we could have done. They were shaking hands, exchanging jerseys. They were just yeah, we expected it. I mean, even before the game, they had Jaguars fans on Reddit, someone in the Detroit Lions Reddit, can you please blow us out so we can fire our coach? And then one guy was you know what? I wanted to get blown out, but not that badly. It's a little embarrassing.
So maybe something in the 30s, not in, the 50s?
Yeah, I mean, I said on the last episode where I was look, I expect them to blow this team out, but maybe not as bad as, the Titans. It was worse than the Titans, honestly, because at least the Titans game, Jared Goff didn't really have to do too much as a quarterback because, the game was already kind of in hand. But he threw for 400 yards. And it was sneaky 400 yards where you're all right, he's probably at 130 or something. And they're yeah, he's at 270. And I was, what? He's at what? And then he hit Jameson Williams for that long touchdown. They're yeah, he's approaching 400. And I'm they're making him throw the ball to prove a point, just to show that last week with Houston was an aberration. The 5 interceptions is not who he is. And as luck would have it, he's back in MVP conversations as a result.
Is there anything to be taken away from that game other than Jacksonville's terrible?
The Lions have a really sound offense that functions, and you can see the different parts of it. Of course, I mentioned Goff, but they have Montgomery, they have Gibbs, they have explosive running. Then you have Amon-Ra in the middle passing game. Then you have Jameson running deep in the long passing game. It flexes that they have something. One thing for concern I will say is, even with Jacksonville's very beat up offensive line and backup quarterback Mac Jones, the pressure wasn't really there. Mac Jones is just not good. That's what that is. He's just not a good professional quarterback. No fault to his own. He's had offensive coordinators changing him almost every year. But there wasn't enough pressure from my liking against a team that doesn't really mount much of a resistance. I'm not going to say they should have had 7 or 8 sacks, but you would have expected probably to have a few more than what they had.
Though Zadarius Smith did get one, and he is quickly becoming fan favorite, without a doubt.
Yeah, he came to the game wearing a custom Rasheed Wallace jersey, which found out was actually a collaboration between the Pistons and the Lions to get him that jersey, which is fair because he's a very big man. I don't think he can just go in the store and be let me get that one real quick. So yeah, he's embracing the role of coming in, kind of how Rasheed came in 2004 and helped kind of turn the Pistons season. They're already doing well, but help kind of put the little last push over to win a championship. He's embracing that role well. And like I said, yeah, free agents who could go other places, people get traded. People were trade me. Eric Armstead, who plays for the Jaguars, he was someone the Lions were looking at, but ended up not going with him. And even during the game, after, you could tell he was that's supposed to be me. That's supposed to be me over there. I'm not supposed to be going back to Jacksonville with this terrible record, with this chaotic locker room. And the funny thing is 2003, the Lions and Jaguars had similar records, and people were who would you rather be, the Lions or the Jaguars? And most people picked the Jaguars. They have a better upward trajectory. And now, someone's heading straight to the basement and someone's heading right to the penthouse. And I'm fairly certain those in Duval County are not the ones heading to the penthouse.
What about Alex Anzalone and losing him for, 6-8 weeks?
If you'd asked me like 2-3 years ago, I'd have said, good, get rid of him. But like the fact that he's reinvented himself to be this player that's so important, the fact he's a defensive captain now, it's going to sting a bit. You have other players stepping up. Jack Campbell has been playing lights out. I think he still continues doing that, even with Alex Anzalone not there next to him. 6 to 8 weeks is not great, but he can come back, and it might even be a little bit earlier. Well, watching his arm bend the way it bent was not comfortable at all. Especially at a point where like the Lions were kind of pouring it on. I know some people were like, get all the starters out now, but like you have to make sure the game is in hand. And it was a friendly fire. He went to go make a tackle. Brian Branch was there. They collided as they hit somebody, and yeah, unfortunately, his arm did a thing it wasn't supposed to do, and yeah, he'll be out. But I mean, at first I thought it was maybe just like a small wrist break. I was like, cast it up, put him back out there. Carlton Davis is out there playing with a broken thumb, looking like someone wearing those Super Mario gloves, thumb just really big for no reason. But yeah, apparently it was worse than what we thought. So losing him for 6 to 8 weeks is not great, but it's not the end of the world. They have some players who can fill in. Malcolm Rodriguez has been playing well as well. So it's not the end of the world. It's not like losing Aiden Hutchinson where we have to fill someone in. The Lions have people on the roster who can fill in for Anzalone.
We've got the Colts coming. How you feeling?
They're a decent team, same division as the Jaguars and the Texans. Anthony Richardson is a pretty good quarterback, but he's the talent, one of the most talented rookies I've ever seen, but also like the mental wherewithal is not all the way there. He'll do something great, and then the next play he'll throw one of the worst passes you've ever seen directly to a defender. So the Lions have to capitalize on that. They have to, when they have him close to making mistakes, force them to complete those mistakes and then pick them off. Kirby Joseph had a great play interception where Mac Jones thought he had a receiver open and threw a very ill-advised ball that not only could Kirby Jones have intercepted, but Brian Branch was also there, and Kirby came and picked up his 7th interception, and the rest is history. So if you force them into making decisions like that and kind of keep them on their toes and then batter them with the run game, this game, I never expect to see the Lions blow a team out with like 50-odd points to like single digits, so I'm not going to say that. But, a nice 30 to like 14 victory seems like an attainable thing against the Colts. They're not, as bad as the Jaguars or the Titans, but they are definitely not making the playoffs. They are not a good team, and the Lions should punish them when they get the chance and get a chance to maybe rest some starters before the short week with the holidays coming up.
100%. And to be clear, they are going to Indianapolis. I meant they were coming up on the schedule, not that that they were coming to Detroit. Fletcher, let's get onto the basketball court and talk about a topic that I think is interesting to listeners and interesting to me, NIL, name, image, and likeness deals. The reason I bring it up is because there's an article in the Detroit Free Press recently about Oakland University basketball coach Greg Kampe and his concerns around NIL, that it's reshaping college athletics, affecting both big powerhouse programs and mid-majors alike, that the shift for players is moving from prestige to financial opportunities, that, an Oakland University is going to have a lot of difficulty competing with a $200,000 amount for NIL deals versus the millions that many of the bigger programs have. And a key quote from the piece talking to Kampe, and I will put a link in the show notes, and this is from the Detroit Free Press, quote, "The players, the money, the boosters, and the rules all play a role in a system that's struggling under its own weight and might eventually collapse if it doesn't find reasonable and sustainable support." Let's talk about it, Fletcher. What say you?
I mean, I think he has a little bit of a point, but not very much of one. Like I will say, Belleville High School quarterback Bryce Underwood, who just finished his season recently, committed to LSU as a 5-star recruit. There is a booster who went to Michigan, who was like, I will give you $10 million to decommit and come to Michigan as an NIL recruit. And of course, $10 million is something to ponder. Bryce ended up saying, no, thank you. But that's a lot of money to give to someone who has not played a down of a college sport, a second of a college sport. But the thing on the flip side I will say is while you are there to coach these kids and play basketball, I understand like you want to make sure that they're there for the right reasons. You're also getting paid $20 million over the course of 4 years. So if you really have an issue with like that, maybe structure your salary differently and maybe give some of that towards getting some other kids there.
I mean, but these other programs are putting money towards their coaches. I mean, to me, this will create a permanent situation of haves and have-nots. And this just pushes this, to me, more toward, okay, just college is the development league for the NBA, or the real development league for the NBA. Not that players shouldn't get something, not that the previous system worked, but if we're throwing around, millions of dollars here, then, I mean, isn't this just basically pro sports at this point?
To a degree, I don't really have an issue with it, especially seeing how some college athletes have had to live in the past, especially ones who were like doing a lot for programs. One thing that pops into mind for sure, UConn basketball won a championship with their point guard Shabazz Napier. The motto they were the hungry Huskies. And people are like, oh, they're hungry for a title. It's like, yeah, we're also hungry in real life too, because we don't have money to eat. And like an institution like UConn putting together multiple NCAA championship winning teams, even with like players played for Detroit, like Richard Hamilton, putting together rosters like that with players who are like, yeah, I don't have money to, like, I can't. Some people are being lavish with money they're spent for sure. But like when your general team, the entire team, the star, the second star, the backup, the 16th guy off the bench is like, yeah, we can't really afford to eat.
I'm arguing there needs to be a middle ground. I'm not arguing that at all.
I mean, maybe there should be maybe something. I mean, I also don't think you should limit what some people can, because I mean, maybe try to spread out your deals. Like maybe you shouldn't have like 3 people competing for this one kid, and then you got someone on the end of the bench just getting nothing. I don't think that's necessarily fair to everyone. I've seen some situations with NIL deals where people have structured them so if the team gets benefit, the players, it's like, well, this one star is going to do this. It's like, well, let's do something for the offensive line. Let's do something for, the DBs as well. So like, I appreciate that, but I don't really have an issue with like the players being compensated, even if it is this much. Maybe 10 million's a bit much, but I don't really have an issue with it. My situation would be maybe make your destination a better one that kids would want to come and maybe skip over the money. Because there are some kids who, like Jack Golke. Jack Golke is a transfer from a bunch of different places, Hillsdale being one of them for sure. And like he didn't go to Oakland for an NIL deal. He went to Oakland for a chance to like play and be put on a national spotlight, which he did with his shooting. Find players like that and develop them into what you can. And I understand like that's kind of hard, especially when the transfer portal opens up and some big schools like, hey, you have this nice 6'2" combo guard from, wherever. We're going to offer him $700,000. Thanks. Bye. I know that's tough, but like if you are truly there about developing these kids into being better players and better people, that shouldn't really faze you, in my honest opinion. Like, and some coaches don't have it like this. I will say this: Oakland's never going to fire Greg Kampe. The court they play on is named after him. Like, he's not. If he's really serious about like developing these players into being better people and potentially better players as a result, then like you just keep doing that and you keep winning in spite of that. And if they take a player, then okay, it means you have to go recruit another player. That's just kind of how college sports is now. Like it used to be. Someone made a very good point about SMU's football team where they were like, there was one time where they started their game and they had 9 players starting for their offense who had never played for SMU before. Like their first game was full of, I mean, that's how Colorado is now with Deion Sanders. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a winning formula. As you see, it took him 3 years to actually have a positive record. But like, it's less recruit. Like you get some people who recruit around locally for sure, but it's really more so like the transfer portal. And I don't necessarily like the fact that people can just leave willy-nilly like that. But I also think there's some parity and some fairness there because coaches can definitely do that whenever they want to do that. They can just say, I don't want to coach here, take my contract, rip it up, and do whatever. And I feel like the players should at least be allowed to have the same amount of freedom, especially if you're going to recruit a kid to come to said school, do all these things you need him to do, and then you leave when a better opportunity presents itself. So, I mean, I don't necessarily have an issue entirely with it. I would say maybe some middle ground might be nice, but you'd have to establish that during, an off season. And that'd be like some, I guess, collective bargaining agreement, which would then take it from college sports to truly a professional arena.
I feel like a CBA is inevitable, though.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, especially when you're offering such big contracts for certain people.
But so here's my thing. I feel like if it's going to be professional sports, then just say it's professional sports and treat it like professional sports, right? Like I feel like this half measure is just really awkward.
My only worry about that is then you're gonna get like two things. One, you're gonna get people trying to push to pay high school players, which is gonna I don't know about that one, Chief. That's kind of a far reach. And two, you're gonna get boosters in high school like stadiums, like trying to influence.
Well, I don't think it would go down. I don't think you just make it so it isn't for high school. You just say it's a transfer fee from the first college on.
No, what I'm saying is if you make college like if you make it the professional thing that it might be leaning towards anyways, if you make it where it's like legitimately like junior level professional, you're going to get people pushing to say, okay, well, if you're going to pay these college kids, why can't we then push it to then pay, some of the high, and then it's going to go from that. It's going to set a weird precedence that I don't necessarily like. Cause it's really easy to influence high school games, and not to say that people would be doing unsettling things, but people have surprised me before.
Well, I think we should see what people think. dailydetroit@gmail.com. Why don't we finish out in Utica? The United Shore Professional Baseball League, or USPBL, has announced plans for a new headquarters and restaurant. This is according to Crane's Detroit Business. It will be a $5 million mixed-use development next to the existing Jimmy John's Field. The 10,500 square foot building will house the league's offices and include a gourmet hot dog restaurant. The project is not just baseball. This is part of a brownfield redevelopment, as Jimmy John's Field is built on a former landfill. The project is expected to create between 60 and 80 jobs, and it got a $400,000 grant for environmental cleanup from the state. Now, first off, Fletcher, for those who don't know, I've been to a few of these games. What is the USPBL? Because there's no travel there. You're just kind of in your bubble, if you will.
Yeah, it's four local teams, local area league, 45 games, ages 18 to 25. So you might see some kids who got out of high school. Maybe they don't have high marks to go play somewhere else. Maybe they're just trying to play some summer ball or some spring ball. It's a chance to see some names. It's like, oh, this kid, he played somewhere, and now he's playing here for a little bit before they do something else. It's a nice little family environment. And honestly, I went to a friend's concert in Utica not too long ago, and it was by Jimmy John's Field. And just it's a very homey area, all kind of tucked in there. And the mayor there like really, really cares. And I'm sure he was pushing for something like this to get more people to come out and do things in the area. It seems like a really good fit. And to add something like this there will get more people to events like this. A little eatery in there, a little down. It's a very nice fit together, in my opinion.
I've always been a fan of like minor league baseball. I've gone to a number of minor league games, and going out to Utica a few times, I've always had a good time. It's not like a huge number of seats or whatever, but it's a really like affordable family option to go see some entertainment and go see a ball game, especially if you live in that part of town and you don't want to go all the way downtown or something, or you don't want to pay Tigers prices.
I mean, to me, it's kind of like the closest thing that will ever come in American sports to promotion and relegation. Because you see in other countries where there's soccer and there's other smaller teams, it's like, well, I follow my team wherever, I follow players wherever. And naturally, of course, like, I have friends who live in Toledo who are like, the Mud Hens are insane. I love the Mud Hens. And I'm like, really? Like, you love those players are going to go to the Tigers. And they're like, I don't care. Like, Mud Hens. And just so to see something like that in a place like Utica where people can just come and say, I like these teams. I don't care if the player's going to go somewhere else. This is my team here. And a little cozy environment, like it's heartwarming. It's I guess what people would want in the whole American sports scene if you're really trying to get down to the brass tacks.
Lightning question before I let you go. Eastside Diamond Hoppers, Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers, Utica Unicorns, or Westside Woolly Mammoths? Those are the four teams.
The first one.
The Diamond Hoppers?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's because, they're hopping around the bases real quick, but like I just imagine like someone just hopping over like a little diamond emoji, and that just makes me chuckle.
I'm gonna have to go with the Diamond Hoppers myself because it's East Side. Because I can't co-sign on the Woolly Mammoths. That's gonna have to be Norris's team.
Fair enough.
All right, thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Fletcher Sharp, I really appreciate you.
Of course, thanks for having me.
As always, feedback dailydetroit@gmail.com, or if you're watching this on YouTube, drop it in the comments. Daily Detroit happens every single weekday, Monday through Friday, covering what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. So until next time, I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.